Well, it's a very lazy, no obligation Sunday here at the old bunkhouse, and I have been wondering whether I could describe, whether I could tell the story of a very clever, twisty ending on a Netflix series I saw called Behind Her Eyes. And I'm just going to give it a try because it was so clever and so complicated that it's just a challenge to see if I could describe it. And obviously, this is going to be a spoiler, so if you have any intention of seeing that show but haven't seen it, you don't want to watch this explanation. But if you have seen it, or if you are just interested in hearing this, not likely to see it, just interested in hearing this recap in isolation, this is for you, and it's mainly for me because I want to see if I can do it. But anyway, okay, I'm only going to repeat the parts of the story, the broad strokes of the story that lead up to this very twisty, clever ending. And we have only four characters who are pertinent here. They're the main four characters in the story. We have a doctor, I think he's a psychiatrist, and his wife in London. They have just moved to London from some uncertain past problems, and he's opened up his practice. Okay, so we have the doctor and his wife. We have the doctor's secretary, who lives with her little son, and they're very sympathetic characters. She's a lovely lady. And the doctor is often checking in with his wife on whether she's taken her medication for some indeterminate problems she has. We get the impression that he's very controlling with this checking in on her for the medication. Meanwhile, the secretary and the husband, the secretary and the husband doctor, quite quickly get an affair going. And, okay, so this is generally the arc of what's going on in the story. Doctor and secretary are getting a hot affair going. He's keeping it, of course, from the wife. The wife is at home almost all the time. But she does meet the secretary on the street, and the secretary is, of course, very uncomfortable about that. But she strikes up a very friendly conversation, and wife wants to get together for coffee and have a friend in town. So reluctantly, they do that. They get to know each other and like each other. And wife gives... We see numerous flashbacks that wife has been... earlier she was in a sort of a rural country mental hospital situation or rehab situation. And she's got a very good friend there who we will call good friend guy. And he's kind of a tough, streety character. I think he's gay. And he's lower class. She's, by the way, very rich. Her family has property or something like that. But they're very good buddies. They have a nice relationship. They're always smoking dope together and joking about everything. And but he's kind of got a dark side, you can tell. And okay, so things progress, as I have said. Husband doctor is having an affair with secretary. She's, of course, very uncomfortable, torn about it. And wife is getting to know secretary, and and secretary's kind of torn about it. So, but okay. So we see a flashback. So, okay, this is about like 2/3 of the way into the movie. Things just progress and progress, and we keep having flashbacks to their time in the mental hospital setting, wife and friend guy. Now, at some point, we see a flashback to a point where she had gotten out of the mental hospital. She's in her family's old country estate building, sort of thing, castle, sort of thing, and a husband is going to come visit. And he comes to visit, and he's a little put out, as I recall, because her old friend from the mental hospital is there, hanging out with her, and he's uneasy about that. He's just kind of a nervous guy, and but they all meet. They sort of get along. I mean, the husband and old friend strike up a bit of a relationship, and I think we get the impression that old friend kind of likes the husband, decides he's a good guy. So then, oh, by the way, one little thing I want to mention is that as secretary gets to know wife gives secretary a book that she brought back from the mental hospital, a sort of a mystic book of writings about how to get in touch with your soul, how to do astral travel, something like that. And she's very interested in the secretary reading this and getting to understand it. Now, why secretary goes along with that, other than out of boredom, and studies it? Oh yeah, because secretary has her own problems with sleep and sort of getting into a different dimension. She's got that problem. She's bugged by it. So wife gives her this book of writings that she brought back from the hospital. They were written by her friend in the mental hospital thing. So anyway, we're back to that weekend in the country. The husband leaves, and the wife and the old friend from the mental hospital are still there. And they get into this real psychic stuff, this real occult stuff, and they trade souls. He gets in her body, and she gets in his body as they astral travel. And they have some hassle or some fight, I forget the gist of it, but she ends up throwing him down the well. And she alerts husband, and husband comes back, and as I recall, and they clean it up, and they pretend it never happened. And I think that's why he's always on her about the medication, because now she's a really big liability. She's done a bad thing. So back in the present, he's always on her with about the medication. All right. So then things go on. I don't think anything significant happens with regard to our trick ending. But things come to a head between wife and husband, and she's all crazy about the situation and the controlling husband, and she's having a terrible night. I think she's like gonna kill herself, and she calls up secretary, and secretary comes over to help her, and they have some big strange interaction, and secretary is not able to help her, and wife, I recall she sets the place on fire, and let's say she dies in the fire. Wife does. I meant to say this is wife who kills herself, and the place is on fire and she dies in the fire. Okay, so now we're left with secretary and husband who have been in love and having an affair. And this brings us to our ending. I mean, somehow we are made to understand that what has happened here is that if you think back to the episode in the country there at the country house, they switched souls. Old pal from the mental hospital and wife switched souls. So they didn't emphasize it at the time, but the person who got thrown down the well and killed was the body of the old friend with the soul, with the mind of the wife. So wife and her ego and her being is dead now. And who's inhabiting the wife all this time now that we've been following the story is actually the soul of the kind of creepy friend from the mental hospital who likes the husband. That's been happening all this time that we've been watching this movie, and the husband doesn't know it, and we don't know it, nobody knows it. And then when wife killed herself and, had the strange interaction with the secretary and then died, the strange interaction was, and I think we saw a bit of this, strange interaction was that soul and mind and ego of the old friend who was in the wife transferred over to the secretary. So who's left now to be with the husband and live happily ever after is the being, the soul of the gay, as I recall, guy from the mental hospital who wanted to be with the husband all along. You see, and they have a real creepy scene at the end to underline all this, because secretary, girlfriend, and husband are in a car going off on vacation. The little boy is in the back seat, and he's very uneasy because he senses something is different about his mom now, and he's trying to question her. And she, who has been very, very sweet with him, very connected all this time, kind of looks back at him with just a little annoyance, because it's not really her anymore. Get it? Pretty clever, huh? Real creepy, man. It was good. It's a good story. Excellent turnaround there at the end. Okay, hope you got that.